Hi everyone, welcome back to my sewing studio. Today we're kind of going back to the beginning and back, I guess, to my roots in smocking to talk about really probably the main reason I started Pink Hollybush Designs and started designing patterns, and that was really to make smocking modern, to make and help it appeal to today's mom and appropriate for today's lifestyle. So today I'm going to be sharing a little bit of my background and history, but also giving you some general tips on how to make sure that garments that you're making are going to be something that today's moms absolutely love. With that, let me introduce myself if you are new here. I am Lisa, the owner and designer behind Pink Hollybush Patterns, a line of sewing patterns for children's garments, most of which have an option for smocking because that is my background, and most of which use knit fabrics, and that is the part of making the smocking modern. But we're going to talk today, you don't have to use knit, so that's not my only tip, but really how to make that smocking garment, that smocked garment, appropriate for today's mom, today's children, to really fit in today's lifestyle. So, little bit backstory. I actually 10 years ago, and it is 10 years now, wow, was the president-elect and then president of the Smocking Arts Guild of America. And I had the wonderful privilege of being able to travel around quite a bit while I was president-elect and president through my wonderful friend Tongan Hunka, who was her job was as an airline flight attendant, and I got to use her buddy pass, so was able to do quite a bit of traveling with the organization, and that was just a great privilege to meet so many people across the country who were smocking. But one of the things I kept hearing as I'd meet them was I would say, oh, who are you smocking for? What are you doing? And they would say, yes, I have grandchildren. They'd be glad to show me the pictures, but then they would tell me that their daughter or daughter-in-law would not put them in the smocked garments. And I was just so disturbed by this, right? Because here, for many of the women I was meeting, they had smocked for their daughters and sons when they were small, and now they were at the phase of life where they had grandchildren, and yet they weren't smocking for them. And I was like, oh, well, what's happening here? And at that time, I was not in that camp yet. In fact, I still had, my youngest was still at home, but my daughters were in college, and then my oldest was out on her own. And so I started asking their friends, and I started anyone I could ask that was in, their 20s, early 30s that I met. I started asking, do you not like smocking? Why were they not putting the kids in the garments? What did they not want? What did they not like about them? And what I found was it wasn't the smocking. They loved the smocking. The smocking was handwork and it was beautiful. But what they often told me was the garments were too fussy and too formal and too fancy. And that just they weren't going places that they needed that level of formality for their children. The other thing they would tell me was the fabrics, right? They weren't going to iron that old iron. And they were fabrics that just didn't look good if they weren't ironed well, let alone not ironed at all. And then the other thing is sometimes they would just, well, it kind of looks old-fashioned. And as I pressed on that, I found that often it was the color that was the problem. Okay, so how do we address these problems? Well, I have a freebie for you, and I will put a link down to that, and it's 5 tips for how to sew garments that both moms and children adore. But I'm going to talk a little bit about some of that here now, specifically with regards to smocking. So don't forget to check out the link below and grab your copy of that so you have it right in front of you. But let's talk through a little bit of that and how you can address it. So the first thing is pick a garment. Don't worry about the smocking for a minute, but pick a garment that has simple style lines. If you go in a ready-to-wear children's store or department, even your local Target, if that's all you have around you, and just walk through, you will notice that children's garments right now are pretty simple. Just the style lines. There's not a lot of bows and whistles and fussiness to them. A lot of times there's not a collar. It's just a simple round or square neckline. Even on little girls' garments that have a ruffle, there's maybe just a little simple ruffle, maybe a little ruffle around the bottom. Not a lot to it. In other words, you don't see the collar and the ruffle and the bow. Simple. Think simple. Okay, that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is think about color. Again, when you're in that children's boutique or Target or general store, if you can't get to it, take a look online. Look at the colors of children's clothes right now. What you will notice is they're fairly dark, fairly muted, especially I'm filming this right now. We're in December, so again, sort of the winter colors. But you'll see a lot of denim, a lot of browns, burgundies, olive green, not pastel pink and pastel blue or yellow. Now again, in the spring, of course, we'll get some of those brighter, more fresher colors, but what you're seeing are garments that can handle the dirt that kids kind of dish out a little bit more, okay? Moms and dads don't want to have to really fuss with the laundry and the trying to get the stains out of the white background. And I know I am in that phase now. I have 2 granddaughters. My one granddaughter goes to daycare every day, and she comes home every day with stuff all over her, whatever she wore. So again, yeah, and my daughter and my son-in-law just want to be able to throw it in the washing machine and go. They don't have time and don't want to fuss around with, I'm going to pre-soak this and I'm going to put this on it to get it out and all of those things. Okay, so again, going with something, picking a print that has not a white background, but a darker brown background, or going with a color. You can smock it, but what about picking a burgundy or an olive green? Some of those colors that you'll see are around right now. Okay, my third tip, kind of again going along with that color, but it makes it look a little bit more modern. And that is, if you're going to smock something on it, let's say you're doing a picture smock, but maybe not even, maybe even with a geometric, but you're going to use an insert, pick an insert that matches the background color of the base fabric. Okay, so in other words, avoid the bright white insert with the garment. So like I've done with this little Johnny here, right? I matched the brown of the garment to the brown of the background fabric. Again, you're avoiding that white that can get dirty, but you're also just making it look a little bit more modern. It doesn't have that bright white stand up and notice insert. Finally, a fabric. Of course, you can pick a pink holly bush pattern and use one of the knits that I recommend. If you're not comfortable delving into knits, we do have some patterns that don't require knits, but make sure to pick a woven fabric that's a little bit more family friendly. And what are those? Well, one of my absolute favorites, flannel. Okay, especially for this time of year if you're watching in real time, but it's soft, it's cozy, kids love it. You wash it, you take it out of the dryer, and it looks great. Okay, so you can find flannel. It doesn't have to be solid. You can use a print, and then, like I said, use an insert if you want to do that, but go with a great quality flannel. Other options, use a good quality polycotton broadcloth. One from Speckler Vogel or Fabric Finders will be a good quality. The fact that polyester is in there, again, will help with the wrinkling. So if you take if they take the garment out of the washer, dryer, hang it up, it will look good. Another option, especially for the summertime, is to go with the high quality cotton gauze. Now I have a whole nother video that I will link to for you on the differences in cotton gauze. You want one that's a little bit heftier rather than the swaddle fabric. If you're going to smock it, but it does pleat up and smock beautifully. And again, right, because it's kind of has that airiness to it, you just pull it out, you hang it, and you're good to go. So 4 fabrics for you. Cotton knits that I recommend for pink holly bush patterns, a cotton gauze in the summer, flannel in the winter, and a polycotton broadcloth just as an all year round, making sure it is a good quality polycotton broadcloth. Speckler Vogel or Fabric Finders being the 2 brands that I recommend. If you do all 4 of these things, you pick a mom and kid friendly fabric. You pick a pattern with simple design, the lines, and you go with colors that are in right now and fit today's lifestyle. I guarantee you that that mom and that child will love your smocked garment. I hope you give these tips a try. Remember to grab the PDF down below, which lists all of these and some additional ones out for you. And happy smocking.